There are moments when a system doesn't just fail, it breaks. It crumbles under its own weight, leaving behind victims, both the expected and the unexpected. Today we're talking about Gregory Ulrich, a man painted as a monster, but who was also a casualty of a healthcare system that abandoned him long before he ever raised a gun. Hello, and this is Strawberry Ink. This is the story of the shooting that occurred in a clinic in Buffalo, Minnesota. On February 9th, 2021, at this Buffalo clinic, there was an epicenter of a horror story. Gregory Ulrich, a 67-year-old man, plagued by addiction, chronic pain, and an endless loop of mistreatment by the very people paid to heal him, walked into the Allina Health Clinic and shattered lives. Ulrich had a history with that clinic, not a good one. Years of inadequate care, mistreatment, and a horrific accident in their parking lot, where healthcare workers allegedly mishandled his wheelchair. The parking lot owner, Bold Properties, was sued. The healthcare workers he blamed sued too. They were two healthcare workers. One case was quietly settled before this tragedy unfolded, but the damage inside him was already done. Judge Stephen Halsey from Wright County dismissed Bold Properties from the lawsuit due to insufficient evidence. However, this civil lawsuit continued with the two healthcare workers. The Minnesota Healthcare Union settled the lawsuit on behalf of them. The victims he shot, 5 clinic workers, were rushed to Hennepin County Medical Center. Lindsay Overbay did not make it. She died of her injuries. The other 4 survived. They were discharged weeks later, but none of them would ever return to work. They resigned from their jobs. They had nearly lost their lives and were left traumatized from that clinic. When police arrived, Ulrich did not resist. He surrendered immediately and was taken to the Buffalo police station. He was afterwards booked into the Wright County Jail on 1 charge of second-degree murder and 2 of attempted first-degree murder. His motive became heartbreakingly clear. He hated the clinic. He hated what they had done to him or failed to do. About a year before the shooting, Ulrich had suffered an accident on a snowy day at the clinic's parking lot, as I recently covered. This caused him to have more back injuries. Therefore, he had sued those 2 healthcare workers, identified as Debbie Ebert and Fred Hopkins. These 2 healthcare workers had been pushing him around in his wheelchair, which led to the accident. The parking lot had been owned by Bold Properties. Therefore, they were tied to the lawsuit as well, and Gregory Ulrich believed that the parking lot was not fit nor designed properly for snowy days, especially not designed properly to be part of a clinic. The healthcare union of Debbie Ebert was the one that settled the lawsuit outside of court. Therefore, this case had been closed before the shooting. Ulrich is known to have suffered from alcohol and opioid addiction. In 2006 and 2007, he was put on probation in Wright County for drunk driving. In 2004, he was put on another probation for driving under the influence of marijuana, which also occurred in Wright County. In 1987, he had a civil dispute in Stearns County, but was shortly after dismissed from that. He had been a defendant in that case with a financial firm. And that's where I need to stop and say this. Our healthcare system is a disgrace. A full unfiltered, rip-off, national disgrace. I'm speaking from experience. My psychiatrist's office shut down. I was tossed into so much paperwork to get another one, and I'm still in the process of doing so. I was left scrambling for help. I was also supposed to get an autism assessment, but the referral from the psychiatrist's office never sent. My path to understanding myself blocked, because the people who were supposed to help didn't even do their basic job. Insurance, a nightmare. The cheap insurances are the crappy ones, and the good ones are the expensive ones that do not cover the full price, that make people pay so much money, hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands for severe cases. The stupid American healthcare system. Gregory Ulrich's story is what happens when that neglect festers for decades. It does not only excuse what he did, nothing can, but if you think for 1 second that the healthcare system is not complicit, you're kidding yourself. After his arrest, Ulrich's case moved fast. 2 days later, he appeared virtually in court via WebEx. No bond. He would remain in custody to await trial. That was the order of duty judge Michelle Davis. A public defender was assigned to represent him. The prosecutor to take on the case, County Attorney Brian Lutz, quickly stacked additional charges, extra felonies, being another charge of second-degree murder, 2 more attempted first-degree murder charges, 3 first-degree assault charges, and 1 charge of second-degree assault. Wright County Sheriff's Office also cited him on a misdemeanor explosives offense. On February 23, 2021, Lindsay Overbay's funeral visitation was held at the Minnesota Valley Funeral Home in New Ulm. That same day, there was a private committal held. She was cremated. In the months that followed, Ulrich was indicted by a grand jury. Charges upgraded, new lawyers assigned. He refused all plea deals. He wanted a jury to hear him, to see him. After the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation tied Gregory Ulrich to a criminal probe, Prosecutor Lutz presented the case to a grand jury, whom went on to upgrade the 4 charges and confirm 4 of them. This grand jury upgraded 1 of the second-degree murder charges to first-degree murder, the gross misdemeanor explosives offense to a felony. The 4 charges that I was recently talking about confirmed attempted first-degree murder. However, the jury did not confirm the 4 remaining assault charges, nor the extra second-degree murder offense. After Lutz unsealed the indictment, Gregory Ulrich appeared before his assigned judge, Catherine McPherson, for his arraignment. Judge McPherson confirmed the indictment, but dismissed the 4 assault charges and extra second-degree murder offense for a lack of probable cause. Ulrich pleaded not guilty to his remaining charges for the indictment. Due to the indictment, his defense attorney, Virginia Murphy, left the case and let Assistant Public Defender Gregory David to defend him from this point on. Jury selection started on May 12, 2022. It took days. He had been in the Wright County Jail stuck for nearly a year. Finding 12 people who could look at the broken man in front of them without already having written the story in their heads was difficult. In Minnesota, for these high-profile trials, there are no alternates in the jury, so the jurors have to be selected very well, or else there may be a mistrial along the way. But finally, a trial began on May 23rd, 2022, with the jury seated. The judge refused a motion of acquittal, and on June 2nd, 2022, the jury found Gregory Ulrich guilty on all counts. On June 17th, days after the verdict, Judge McPherson announced that the case was ready for sentencing, and that Ulrich may be sentenced consecutively. Then on the 23rd day of the month, he was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months in prison for the explosives charge. Then for the 5 murder charges, he received another sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. All terms would be run consecutively. Therefore, he was sentenced to prison for natural life plus 45 months. After sentencing, Ulrich was temporarily housed at the state prison in St. Cloud. This was for him to be evaluated. He was later admitted into the Stillwater, a state prison in Bayport, Minnesota, where he is currently serving his sentence. He appealed his case and got a new public defense attorney, Rachel Bond, who would represent him throughout this next appellate process. Meanwhile, County Attorney Brian Lutz, who prosecuted, would remain in the case to fight this appeal attempt. On October 11, 2022, Judge McPherson refused to redo the trial, rejecting a motion for mistrial. In April Fool's Day in 2024, the Minnesota Supreme Court affirmed the conviction, denying Gregory Ulrich a new trial. As of April 2025, the appeal remains pending, as the U.S. Supreme Court is yet to decide whether they will take up the case or not. Gregory Ulrich did not pay his fees of $14,124.92 for booking and medical expenses while he had been awaiting trial. Therefore, Wright County sued him. Assistant County Attorney Karen Wolf filed a lawsuit against him. While at the St. Cloud facility, Ulrich received financial aid to fully pay off the fees. Therefore, the lawsuit was settled and dismissed on September 29, 2022. What a sellout. The media said Gregory Ulrich was a monster. Maybe he was, but he was also abandoned, pushed aside, mocked, mishandled, misdiagnosed, and finally, ignored. What happened in Buffalo wasn't just a story of one man snapping. It was the story of a system that snaps people every single day, until eventually someone snaps back. Fix a system. Fix it before the next Gregory Ulrich walks through the next clinic's front door. Because when the system forgets about humanity, humanity will forget about the system. Thank you for listening to this episode of Strawberry Inc. Please support me by following the show, sharing it, and liking the episode. Have a good rest of your day.